Hello everybody, my name is Luke Moore and this is Hot Mode, and today on Hot Mode we're going to be talking about some of my predictions for some of the upcoming fashion show debuts that are really quite exciting and are going to shake up the industry. Alongside eBay, who is today's sponsor, we're going to be looking at 5 different designers that are going to be showing their first collections for new brands, and we're going to be trying to predict some of the ideas that they might possibly show on the runway. Because the thing is, the fashion industry musical chairs has come to an end for now. And this year we're going to see huge debuts from a bunch of brands, whether it's Celine or Gucci or Chanel or Dior or Jean-Paul Gaultier or Bottega Veneta and Balenciaga, and there might be even a few more, who knows. And so I think it's kind of important to talk about what is going to actually be happening with these debuts. And I'm happy that eBay is allowing me to do this video because I feel like eBay is such a good reference point for so much of fashion archival history. Sometimes I like to just go through and scroll through the pages, and you'll find all these things that maybe brands never really look at, talk about, reference, that exist within their world and their history. You'll find things like brand lines that have gone away or have changed names in certain circumstances that, again, like, it's just not really present mind, but on eBay, everything is possible. So we're going to be looking at 5 different brands, and we're starting off with Louise Troder's debut at Bottega Veneta. Now, for Louise Troder, something we need to know is that construction is important to her. In interviews, she talks a lot about how she finds the insides and the actual construction of garments as the most fascinating element of the clothing that she produces. And that's because it's really where the bones of the garment is in the foundation, and it explains in reality how the outside looks when you start to look at the inside. And so when I was thinking about that idea of construction being so important, I think something that's very clear that we're going to be seeing a lot of from Louise Troder's Bottega is the intrecciato weave. I mean, listen, it is like the signature Loewe symbol to us all now. I think that it's become a very mainstream brand in the sense that people talk about it, they know what it is, they know what it looks like, and so I wouldn't be shocked to see Louise Troder referencing a lot of those kind of pieces on the runway. I also think that within the Bottega world, it's something that you look at the designer that has come before you, and instead of just fully revamping what they've done, you really do try to just build upon that and slowly, surely, and safely navigate your own direction off. I think that's what we saw a lot with Matubazi at Bottega from when he took over from Daniel Lee, and I think that's what we're going to see from Louise Troder too. I mean, there are these beautiful intrecciato shoes that, again, like, they don't have to be in leather. Sometimes they look like they're in satins and silks, and they don't just have to be like a pump, but a really sort of casual, interesting, easy to understand sort of loafer exists. And when I look at Louise Troder's past work, a lot of her work is about designing clothing for men and women that they can actually wear, that they will actually utilize within the world that they exist in. So something like a loafer like this, I think, is very easy to understand. I'm not saying that she won't show crazy kind of things. I think we can see examples of the kooky, crazy intrecciato that exists in the world, but I do think it's something that we're going to be getting a lot of more casual, more easy to understand, more wearable pieces. And then also, I just think she's going to try and play her way into the bags of the intrecciato. It's something that you can see all the different styles, whether it's a more casual sort of slung over the shoulder bag too. There's different ways to do it. And I think we can also see, when we even look at this sort of fringy frayed style of intrecciato, that Louise Troder is going to look at something a little odd, a little quirky, and play on that as well. And considering she likes the idea of deconstruction, I could see her maybe doing a little bit of a deconstructed, frayed version as well. Louise also loves a boxy, tailored style. I think that goes back to her talking about in interviews, sort of just traveling through the streets and looking at what people around her are wearing. And I think this idea of like a boxy, solid, strong piece of suiting really rather works, and also is something that she's done time and time again, whether it was at Carvin, whether it was at Lacoste, whether it was at Joseph, where she had this cult pant that people still to this day go to Joseph to buy. You know, Louise understands how to do it, and so I think at Bottega we'll see a lot of that as well. Bottega is also not afraid of a tailored piece. A lot of the styles we see are sort of skirt suity, but there's this little capri set that I was like, oh, a capri suit. I feel like those could come back. We could have a moment. And this sort of striped skirt suit style also was rather intriguing to me because I can't really figure out how it works or how it's supposed to be worn. But when I look back at Louise's Carvin as well, there was these sort of exaggerated pieces that maybe didn't always make sense until you put the clothing on. And then you were like, oh, I see it, I get it. It's exaggerated, it's a little kooky, it's a little different, but it still very much so will work within somebody's actual utility for their life. So I think that Louise Trotter's Bottega Veneta debut is going to be a little bit straight-laced, but I think it's going to work. Now, next up, we have to talk about Demna at Gucci, and I feel like people are going to be very Demna Gucci, but I actually think he's going to do very well. And I think that when I look back at his early work at Balenciaga, the man understood how to reference Cristobal Balenciaga. He just oftentimes did it in fabrics that were not traditional haute couture styles. He would reference the iconic swing coat, but he didn't do it in like a wool that your grandmother would wear. He did it in technical parka fabric or in puffer coats. And so I think that Demna is going to understand. And the first thing that I think he'll get about Gucci, first and foremost, is the silk scarves and the sort of silk clothing that is very imperative to the brand, and it's a symbol that we also think about and look at quite often. The silk scarves have been around for a long time, since the 1960s, and there's all these different sort of avenues that the silk scarves work within. Sometimes they reference the monogram, sometimes they reference flowers and flora, sometimes they reference saddles and equestrian styles or the nautical world. There's this wide range that the Gucci silk scarves can take reference from. The very earliest of the ready-to-wear that Gucci did had silk scarves incorporated. So it's very much something I think Demna will tap into. I think they'll probably go through the actual silk scarf archive, try to build that into an accessory that you can play with and utilize and make cool on your own bags and shoes and person even. But I also think he'll go through and sort of start to create different bags and shoes that exclusively work with the silk scarves. I mean, we've seen it be done before through the world of Gucci. I mean, Alessandro Michele did it. It was actually rather intriguing when he did it. We can also see that throughout time, the ready-to-wear has also taken influence from the silk scarves. I mean, Alessandro Michele was doing it in these sort of mini dresses. We can look back to the 1960s and see, again, on eBay, there's actually one of the original Gucci ready-to-wear pieces on there, and I'm like, Luke, stop yourself from buying it, but it's gonna be tough. But like clasp style, we can actually see if you zoom in really close. It has horse hoof clasp on it. Again, like that Gucci historical reference. Like eBay is so cool. That's why I love eBay. It's just, there's so much stuff on there that you're like, oh, I didn't even know that this like existed. But here we are. So I think the silk scarves will definitely have their moment. I also think that Demna is going to look at platforms. I think something that we saw throughout his Balenciaga tenure is the man loves to supersize shoes. So there's a wide range of Gucci styles, big raised platforms. They were doing these mules and heels that had these block sort of styles that pumped the ankles and the calves up. And so I think that Demna will definitely do that. Also, I was thinking maybe the sneakers in and of themselves like will become once again a sort of dominant factor. I could see Demna sort of taking the regular sort of green, red stripage on those casual sneakers and making them supersized and huge and big, or I don't know, maybe making them small. Who knows? I think that he'll do something cool shoe-wise, though. It makes sense. So I think Demna Gucci, it's something to be watched. You can't judge it until it comes down the runway. Next up, we have Matubazi, who has left Bottega to go to Chanel. And I think, honestly, I don't really know what he's going to do too much, but my one prediction is the Minotti airbags will definitely be lively and fun again. If you think about it, there was just something like great about those little compact clutches that tied to the themes of different fashion shows. So whether they were referencing like the actual history of the brand by doing the Chanel makeup compact, or pearls by making just one gigantic pearl of a bag, or referencing where the Chanel shows were taking place. Sometimes they were doing fun seaside styles or a diesel canister. There was popcorn. There was, the Chanel perfume bottles. Like it was a reference thing. But Matubazi, when he was at Bottega, often made kind of quirky, crazy bags. I mean, remember his last show literally had a leather shopping bag tote. There was also obviously the very iconic sort of fish handle clasp bags, or just fish clutch bag. So within the world of Matubazi, those kooky crazy bags exist, and I think that at Chanel he's going to bring them back. I'm also amazed at eBay's ability to have so many of those Minotti bags that are highly desirable up there for listing. Now we have Duran Lantink, who is the creative director of Jean Paul Gaultier, and without a doubt, I think that something Duran Lantink is definitely going to do with Gaultier is show stripes. I mean, the Breton stripe, the Mariner stripe, like they are the signature stripes of the Gaultier brand, and I don't think that he could go doing a debut show without actually showing them on the runway. We also like saw them a lot during his own brand, Duran, the brand. He liked a stripe. It's a very Frenchy thing. And the Gaultier brand has shown Breton stripes in everything from tank tops to t-shirts to dresses, although they're only maybe like a certain part of the dress. But also there's been bags and things like that. So it is a wide-reaching experience. I mean, even like the perfumes incorporate the Breton stripe. So I don't know if it would be Gaultier without a stripe. I also think that we'll see Duran Lanting take on the mesh styles that made the Jean-Paul Gaultier brand cemented in fashion history. I mean, the Cyber Baba collection turned him into a bona fide fashion cult figure. And there are all different references for the mesh, whether it is different forms of art like Warhol or medieval and sort of Renaissance art, or these pieces that we saw that are trompe-l'oeil prints meant to look like heavy, thick knits, which I actually find incredibly fascinating. Like, there's just something about the printed mesh that is another comical yet important part of the Gaultier ethos. And I think that we'll probably see Duran maybe do something along the printed mesh styles, but the way that maybe they're blown up, the way his own brand did these sort of big ballooned pieces, I could see it happening. So yeah, I think Duran's going to be quite comedic with his goat-isms, and I think there's a lot to look at throughout the archive to see why it will be the way it is. And lastly, Jonathan Anderson. He's going to Dior. Sweet baby king. We stan. I think this is probably going to be the most difficult to predict only because the Dior brand is so wide and Jonathan Anderson is such a quirky, art-inspired human being that you never really know what's going to pique his fancy and what he's going to draw from. I mean, when he was at Loewe every season, you would not know what was gonna happen. So let's talk maybe about predictions for his menswear first. I'm really interested, and I think a lot of his great menswear throughout time has been sort of taking these really classic, easy to understand, easy to wear, easy to buy pieces, and then he makes them subtly weird. He twists them, he modernizes them, and there was this Dior Mons line that existed before it became Dior Homme in 2001. That's probably where he might draw a little inspiration from. There were these beautiful sweaters that have just little Dior logos embroidered. It was actually the capital D and then lowercase IOR, which Jonathan has actually changed logo back to the DIOR, 1 capital, 3 lowercase. So just a thought. And I feel like he would actually wear some of those pieces. And I think when you look at his menswear, a lot of what he wears does sort of inspire a bit of the menswear too. So I wouldn't be shocked to see some like track jackets in these more technical fabrics as well. I also think they're kind of chic, and I'm like, maybe I need one. So yeah, I think that's what the menswear moment is going to be. But as for his women's wear, again, I don't know what the clothing is necessarily going to look like, but I can predict he's probably going to do a little play on the canage, if you don't know, which is essentially like the wicker styles of the seating outside of Parisian cafes and brasseries. The way that the wicker chairs were woven inspired Christian Dior himself, and he started to play on that. Then slowly throughout time within the Dior brand, that became a signature sort of style. A lot of the pieces that we see usually are quilted, and they're a reference to the iconic Lady Dior bag as well. There are a bunch of variations that you can find, whether they're shoulder bags, whether they're sort of hand holders. There's a bunch of these canage pieces. There's actually like some really interesting shapes, like these sort of 90s clacky little, almost like lunchboxy bags that if you go through eBay and you're just like, wow, I didn't even know that these existed. So the quilted most definitely is a signature, but I also saw something that I found kind of fascinating, which was this woven style. And I feel like Jonathan Anderson, especially when you look at his Loewe time, he really liked this idea of craft, this idea of pieces that really respect the handheld nature of how things were made, this sort of real creation construction. And so I wonder if he might bring back a little woven experience too. Again, like, who would even know that these existed unless you're on eBay? I mean, there's a bunch of fun, funky colors too that exist of the canage as well, and a bunch of different styles, not just the Lady Dior, but some little shoulder straps and all that. Like, I think that the canage will be a moment that he will most definitely make, I think, a little younger and a little cooler again, because I think sometimes it can air a little older. And so I would not be shocked to see him make that the moment. So yeah, those are my predictions for some of the biggest fashion shows that are coming out this year. I want to say a huge thank you to eBay for letting me do this video. I feel like it's always fun to go through the archives of eBay and see what's going on in the world and see like how it's going to influence the future, because it usually does. There's no way that the girls are not going and shopping on eBay and then recreating those pieces for the runway too. So please let me know if you guys had any pieces that you think most definitely will make their way onto the runway, or if you think that all my predictions are kind of crazy. But I will see you guys in the next one. Thank you so much for watching, and TTYL.